Alistair, how you going, mate?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It was a funny thing. I got a couple of messages yesterday saying make sure you secure the garage door. So, so like our last talk, the door tried to decapitate me basically. So I upgraded the studio and I'm in the kitchen.
Oh, okay. I can hear by the acoustics, by the sound. It sounds a little bit better. So,
Yeah,
awesome. Good,
we're at a
good to be
premium
here.
setup now.
Yeah,
So
I
how's
was
everything
working.
going?
Yeah, it's been going good. Obviously, it's been quite challenging, like for everybody else as well. So, no matter how positive you stay and how upbeat, it's still very tough. We're all getting to. I think it's now maybe what 6 weeks or something.
Yeah.
It feels longer. It's funny. I was just chatting to Xavier and Melise this morning, and I've just said we've both probably never been in one place this amount of time before without traveling or without being on a plane. So I really can't wait until things get back to normal, whatever that is,
Yeah,
and to
yeah,
travel again. And yeah, looking forward to it.
exactly. We don't know what normal's going to be, but
It's going to
yeah,
be weird. It's going to be
yeah,
really weird to get back to normality and start working again and having
that's
to
right.
discipline yourself. I know everybody's been enjoying great sleep-ins and lie-ins,
Yeah.
me included. Um, I've been having a few 7 a.m., 7:30s, which almost feels like I've
Yeah.
wasted half the morning, you know?
Agreed. Yeah, I'm a 5:30 guy usually when I'm working, and now I'm up at the same 7:30. So, all right.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of questions to ask you, so I want to dive into it. And if people have questions as we go through, leave them in the comments, and we'll try and get to as many as we can for Alistair. But the first one, mate, you've got a new book
Before
out
we
called
start,
Yes.
before we start there, Joel, I see we're in the hat club, right?
Oh yeah,
because
100%.
because you know my hair has gone wild with no haircut for about 6-7 weeks. So I didn't want to scare everybody away. So I think maybe you're in the same boat, right?
I, I
So
got
it's
I
like,
got my wife to give me a quarantine chop, and it was just that.
well, I tell you, I've been looking at my clippers the last few days, but I don't think it's going to be a good job if I do it myself. I'll probably end up at number one and number two. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, this is the hat is because of my hair.
Oh, the same. I'm in the same boat. Yeah, so now you've got a new book out called Developing a Winning Attitude and Mindset. Can you talk a little bit about your motivation to write that book and some of the things that are in it?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. The more I've evolved in what I do and going into the mindset, I just thought it was time to expand a little bit outside of just sport. Even though there's a lot of sport analogies in there, sport will always be something that I love and stay closely to. But I wanted it to be a book that could appeal to anybody, at any age. So it's a very easy read. It's been written the same as Champion Minded. Easy chapters, 1 or 2 pages. Get a quick message, get a bite-sized message, for example. But 50 chapters, which are around about 2 pages each. It's an easy read, 2-3 pages. You get a message from it, but it's all about. We'll talk about being positive and having a good attitude and so on and so forth. But how do you do that? How do you stick to that? And the bottom line is it's an everyday skill. Just like you work on your game, you work on your serve, you work on your speed,
Yep.
footwork. It's the mind is the same. People, they give up too early. They give up too quickly. They maybe go to a mental coach or they read a book thinking things are going to change. Well, that's like me coming to you, even though I know you're a fantastic coach, Joel, and saying, make me a great player in one session
Yep.
or make me a great player in a month. And then it doesn't happen. And then I go, well, you know what? That doesn't work. So
Yep.
it's the same with mental as well. So in that book, I've got some great examples of encounters I've come across, people I've
Yes.
met, examples, even people that are bag packers, which thank God for them right now, people in the
Yeah.
grocery stores and so on. Those are our
Yep.
heroes. Some of my experiences, some of my failings, also my ability to be more vulnerable, which is an ongoing thing for me as well, and for many as well. That once you become more vulnerable, you become to free yourself,
Yep.
as well. So yeah, it was really an exciting book and a nice book to write.
Yes, and then you had some production problems, but hopefully they're all getting out there now, and people are able to get online. I know that it's available on Amazon and probably through your website as well.
No, just through
No,
Amazon right now.
through
Yeah.
Amazon.
Unfortunately, just the amount of time I have, and I'd have to employ someone just to do that on the
Yeah.
website, which is not really worth it.
Yes.
But Amazon, they take care of everything. Yeah, obviously because of the coronavirus, there was a lot of difficulty with with getting the book out. I mean, Amazon had the book before my publisher did. So
Oh, really?
yeah. So Amazon had the book before I even had a copy. So I had to order my first copy from Amazon. So I paid back into myself to get one. Yeah.
Good on you. I had my next question. I was changing, like, obviously changing an attitude is one of the hardest things to do because it's sort of the invisible skill. Can you give us an example of some success you've had changing a tough attitude?
Well, look, here's the thing. Nobody can change somebody else's attitude. That's got to come from the person themselves. You know, we can provide them the tools. Yep. You know, Joel, you can't change, or there's a lot of coaches on here right now. You can't change somebody's game. You can provide the tools, you can provide the knowledge, the information, but at the end of the day, that has to come from the person themselves. So in other words, how coachable are you to change your game? How coachable are you to unlearn, to relearn something new? You know, I always say it's like taking someone that's been driving a car and they've developed all those bad habits, and now you try to teach them to drive their driver's license again. And you're having to unwire all these habits. So, for example, my arm is out the window. I'm driving with one arm on the steering wheel. It's like as a coach that you get these bad habits, and now you're trying to unwire them. The same with our mentality as well, is that we have wired ourselves to the way we are today is a past of our upbringing, our values, our beliefs, people that we spend time with, the language we use, our behaviors, and so on. So it's a matter of unlearning to relearn.
Yeah, I think something that helped me a while ago was just being a bit more honest with myself. Do you think like having an honest assessment of yourself and knowing where you can really improve is the first sort of step?
Exactly. And how do you do that? You know, so we all know that we need to do these things. We need to be positive. We need to have good self-talk, but how do we do that? And that was one of the motivations towards writing the book, is here's how you do it in a practical way. So, you know, absolutely. It's something that's so important. It's something that you have to work on a daily basis. Yeah,
we talked a little bit about habits last time that we had a chat. And I think something that really helped me in my life in general was I sat down and I sort of listed all of the habits that I had from waking up to going to bed. And I listed everything, and I sort of highlighted all of the ones that I didn't like. Like, for instance, I would come home from the court starving and just eat the whole fridge. So that was something that I highlighted, and I tried to find some new things to insert in there. Have you found that like just scheduling and creating better habits has helped your athletes?
Yeah, for sure. You know, that's what it all comes down to, is you become your habits, you become your behaviors. So, you know, habits and behaviors drive results. So look at a player on the court, for example. If they have good habits, they have good rituals, they have good routines, they have good behaviors, the likelihood of them having a better result is increased, for example. Where is that learned? That's not just learned on the practice court, that's learned off the court as well. So, you know, it is about developing new habits, which is easier said than done. You know, habits is also a change of mindset as well. So, you know, one of the best things I do, and one of the tips I give in the book is cues, visual cues. You know, writing stick-it notes, for example, putting them on your mirror, putting them on the side of the bed, putting them in the car, for example, or even writing something on the grip of your racket to remind you to do that thing. So, you know, why people forget is because they don't see the cue. You know, so in a match, for example, they know they're supposed to be positive. They know they're supposed to move their feet when they get nervous, because obviously our feet get slow when we get nervous. We get tight, we freeze. So, you know, writing these things, you know, for example, on the top of the grip or something, feet, energy, positivity, whatever it may be, reminds you to be in that frame of mind.
That's excellent. I posted a photo of Andy Murray's match reminders the other day, and it was a sheet that he had. I believe he was playing David Goffin in 2015, and number one line item was "Be good to yourself," and you know, and then it went down.
I was about to say, was that his notes for his online gaming, or was that for an actual tennis match? I see that he's kicking everybody's butt on online. I mean, I think he's getting more Grand Slam success there than he is in reality.
He's a bit of a gamer. We beat Nadal the other day, right? It's the Virtual Madrid Open, so he was claiming that he's got a win over him on clay. So it's it's pretty impressive.
I can resonate with Rafa. I mean, I have no clue how to play a video game. Also, just these Instagram, for me, you know, you were one of my first Instagram lives, so I I don't know if you saw that thing with Rafa the other day where he's like looking at the phone. I feel exactly the same. I'm also like, how does this thing work?
I've watched a lot of them, and it's the same thing. But it's yeah, once you get it, it's all right. The next one that I was going to ask you about is about the elite athletes that you've worked with and some of the self-doubts and insecurities. I think we look to elite athletes and think they're superhuman, but do they share any commonalities with the average player?
Oh, hands down. Absolutely. Probably in some cases even more so, because they're even more perfectionist-like. So everything is never good enough, you know. So you know, Kevin Anderson, for example, one such player, everything is about details for him, re-questions everything, you know, respectfully, of course. So yes, do the top players have insecurities? Massively, massively. Every single player I've worked with has the same insecurities that even a club player has, an academy player has. You know, we all think that top players don't get. Sorry. You know, we all think that we all think players have it all together. The top players have it all together, but not the case at all. No. You know, I've seen Roger in the locker room. I've seen Rafa before a match. David Ferrer, for example, they look nervous. I know David Ferrer, for example, he used to put on his headband 4 or 5 times in the space of about 5 minutes. Take it off, put it on. Take it off, put it on. Those were all nerves. You know, for Dasco as well. He just runs up and down the locker room, you know, doing sprints. So it doesn't change, no. The thing is that the difference is that they just have a bit better control of it when they're on court. They hide it better. They have a better body language, but believe me, they're feeling the same nerves. Yeah,
that's definitely something that has always interested me. You know, you always think these guys are so, you put them on a pedestal and they've got a lot of the same mental issues, and I guess they just have better ways to deal with it than we do. My next question for you was concentration and focus. How can we work on these specific skills? Because as you know, in tennis, specifically, you know, a 30-second concentration lapse might lose you the set. You might get broken and lose the set. What types of things can we do to sort of improve those skill sets?
You see, all these things stem from what you do on a daily basis. So if you look at, like, for example, today's generation, or even, you know, not even today's generation, but even us, for example, we'll have various windows open on our laptop, or we'll be in various conversations on WhatsApp, for example. So, you know, you're going from one conversation to the next, to the next. So your concentration is all over the place. So how can we expect our players to be focused when they don't have focus in their daily life, for example? So what are some things they can do is, as painstaking as it is to read 3 or 4 pages of a book without getting distracted, without looking at their phone. And you know what? I'm as guilty as charged. I'll be reading a book. I'll be 2 pages in, and I'll be thinking, oh, did I answer that email, or did I ask that question, or who just messaged me? So distractions. The thing is that we've got to eliminate distractions. You know, I would leave my phone on when I'm reading, and then it would ping, and I'd look at it, and I'm just distracted. I'm not there. So little things like this that we do every day. You know, keywords again, have focus written on your grip, or have focus written on your notes, for example, and stay in the moment. How do we focus more? Is that we, you know, self-talk helps with that. Talking to ourselves, keeping ourselves engaged all the time. That's how we stay focused in a way. You know, great basketball coaches will always tell you that winning teams are talking teams. There's communication going on. But in tennis, for example, unless you're playing doubles, you're by yourself. So you need to keep your inner dialogue going. You need to keep talking to yourself to keep yourself in a focused state, in a zone state. So, you know, you look at Maria Sharapova, for example, continually talking to herself. Other players, I know Dominic Thiem does as well. You know, you might not see it, but they're continually the whole time in verbal communication with themselves. That's how they stay focused. At the elite level, college level, you know, these type of levels, you drop your focus for a game or two, and you've lost momentum. You know, that other player is onto the momentum. And tennis is about a game of momentum, of gaining momentum, you know, because you see, like, all of a sudden 3, 4, 5 games they win in a row, and then they lose focus, and that can change, you know, all of a sudden. So, you know, focus is key.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. We've got a question here from Sean Pook. How important are commands and fist pumps during a tennis match? Should club players work on this to improve their winning mindset?
Well, absolutely. I mean, obviously you don't want to overdo it. Otherwise it loses its effect. So, you want to time your you want to time your verbal cues or your body language, the pumping the fist. If you're pumping your fist after every point, that's not going to have any effect. Maybe it might help you a little bit, but it's when to do it. It's when to put on that come on. A break point, or breaking your opponent at 4-3 or whatever. That's a great time to put in a big roar, to put in a big come on. Or a very tough point, a 30-40 ball rally, for example. That's a great time to put in a come on. If you're doing it all the time, it loses its effect. Now, it's okay if you're doing it to yourself. A little bit like clench the fist, and keep yourself engaged, keep yourself motivated. But the best players know when to use it. Yeah,
definitely. Another good question here. Do you think anger, frustration can help or hurt you when struggling?
Well, we've seen, I've always said that, players, it's better that you, and, kids don't try this at home, but it's better you get it out. There's nothing worse than moping around, complaining, tapping your racket on the ground, complaining to your coach, complaining to yourself. That is just, for me, that is semi-tanking. That is semi-tanking when you're just complaining and moaning and just taking up space. You're just taking up space on the tennis court. You're doing nothing else.
Yep.
I always say, get it out. If it's breaking a racket, if it's shouting, whatever it may be, get it out. We know Stan Wawrinka, he can lose it, but he loses it once, and then he plays. Now, I'd rather have that than a player just continually carrying on and just moping and tapping their racket and complaining.
Yep.
That, for me, that's another version of tanking.
Yeah, definitely. You touched on self-talk a little bit. How important is the language that you use to speak to yourself with the internal dialogue?
Massive. Massive. What you say to yourself is basically what manifests, what happens. You can talk yourself in or out of anything. Yesterday on my podcast, and I'm bringing it out tomorrow, I had Courtney Dalwalter. Now, many won't know her. She is the 2018 Ultra Distance Runner of the Year. Listen to this. She ran a race that was 240 miles. That's 380 kilometers in 58 hours. I spoke to her about the mindset. And this is a great podcast. You got to listen to this. It comes out tomorrow. I said to her, where do you go in your mind when you want to quit? Where do you go in your mind where it's just too hard? And she said, quitting is not an option. She says, I talk, even though I'm feeling terrible, I can still talk my way back into it. I know that it's going to get better. They say fake it until you make it. In a way, you have to sometimes and say, I feel great. I've got this. You know what? I'm feeling better every step I'm making here. The same is going to be on the court as well. There's a big difference here's the difference between the good and great players. And I mentioned this in the new online course I'm actually bringing out, which we can chat about. The difference is that the great players have better bad days.
Yes.
They know how to handle their bad days better. That's the only difference, because everybody's human. Everybody has bad days. The good to average players, they let the bad days get to them. They let the bad moments get to them, and then they let the match slip, where they just go, it's not my day, he's lucky, she's lucky, whatever it may be. The list of excuses come in. Yep. So the great players have better bad days.
Yeah, 100%. Courtney Dauwalter, I listened to her Joe Rogan podcast, man, and it was unbelievable. I think she beat the runner-up by 10 hours, who was a man, by the way. It was male and female. And
a professional as well. I mean, the top 10 there are professional runners. So, I mean, she's a freak. She is an absolute freak. You've got to listen to this podcast, because she runs in basketball shorts, okay? So do I, but I'm not in her league. Number two, I asked her, what is your race food? Oh, McDonald's, quesadillas, nachos. And this is a professional athlete, and she is kicking everybody's butt. And so I said to her, this is just insane. I mean, you're not taking any special things. I mean, she takes like a power bar or stuff like that, but there's nothing like extreme.
So here.
And it's in the head. It's in the head. And she has such a relaxed approach to it, as if to say, I've prepared. If it happens today, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So we talk about fear. Players that play with fear, they get nervous. They start to get tight. That's having an outcome mindset. The fear of what the result's going to be. You know, if you have that, adopt that same mindset of as Courtney, for example, she prepares hard. Of course she wants to win. You know, she's a champion. Of course she wants to win. That's a no-brainer, that one. But she lets it happen on the day. I will give my best today, no matter what happens. If my best is 7th, that's good enough for me. And she has that attitude. She's come to peace with that attitude. A lot of people talk about it, but they don't come to peace with that. They don't make that agreement with themselves.
Yeah, that's actually almost a verbatim quote from Nadal when he said, I always give 100%. He said, some days that's 100% of my ability. He said, some days that's 60%. But I'm okay knowing that if I give 100% of that 60, I can walk away and I feel like I've given it all and I can leave it out there. It's awesome. We got a question from our friend, Mr. Harnett. As a former
and I see there's one there from Kyle, so let's get on to Kyle's as well. So don't forget that.
As a former world-class dual athlete during competition, do you ever arrive at a moment of I cannot go on and then push through? What helped you move forward at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I wouldn't be doing the distances that Courtney did, for example. But yeah, in an endurance race, you're going to go through good and bad times. And, you know, there's many races that I did win or do well in that the thought came across my mind of like, maybe it's not my day. And the quicker I was able to put that out of my mind, the quicker I could get back into the process. And I would say to myself, I'm feeling terrible right now. I'm feeling terrible on the bike. I'm feeling terrible on the run, but it will get better. And you know what? 9 out of 10 times it would get better. So it's really about just riding the waves. It's about staying positive. It's about continuing, like, putting yourself in that frame of mind, self-talking. Even if you feel terrible, you're telling yourself, I actually feel great. Yeah. So, you know, like Courtney said as well in the podcast, I would just fool myself. I'd kid myself that I was actually feeling better than I was.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, so Kyle's question is, please explain the negative thought police in the book.
Yeah. So that was like this little visual, and hi to Kyle, hi to Jason. You know, that was a little thought for me that it was like in my mind. It was like an analogy of that when something negative comes across your mind, you almost have the police in your mind going, stop, you're not going to say that. And, you know, for me, that was what I have, is that when I think something negative or I'm doubting or whatever, I have what I call the negative piece coming to my rescue and saying, nope, stop, you're not going to say that, you're going to think something else. And again, that's taken time to train as well, is being aware. Now, those people that know me out there, they'll know that I say the difference between negative and positive people is that positive people let go of negative thoughts quicker. And so for me, that's like the negative piece. The quicker you can employ your negative piece, your attitude piece to help you with your negativity, the better. The faster you can move on. We know tennis is a game, or actually any sport is a game, is that the quicker you can move on from the previous point, the better. Okay? Yep. The champion players are able to let go of the last point faster, quicker. They don't hang on to it. They don't bring it into the next point. So shout out to Jamie McCracken in the UK as well. She's awesome. Hi, Jamie.
So that's a good point. It's not that the great players don't have the thoughts. It's that they can move on. So nobody's perfect. They're not going to be positive all the time. But it's when you find that they creep in, it's how quickly can you turn it around.
Yeah. Listen, you know, Federer, of course, he's the example of everything. But Federer, he has his demons. You can see him sometimes on the court really building up inside, you know, but he's been able to control those over time, because he's like any of us. He can lose it. We've seen him break a racket or two in his time, like anybody else. But like I said, gets it out, and then carries on. Again, I'll go back to it. There's nothing worse than seeing a player moping around a court. I always say it's just you're wasting air, oxygen. You're an oxygen thief.
Oxygen thief. Yeah, I was going to say.
On the court. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So when's the podcast? It's available tomorrow, right?
Coming out tomorrow. Yes.
The next episode.
I'll probably bring it out around about 10 a.m. New York time. So it's a really, really cool podcast. Have
to listen to that one. And the girl's name is Courtney DeWater, by the way. I think there was
Courtney
DeWater that earlier.
Also a great one. Sorry, just jump in there. Yep. It was released last week. It was Tara Moore, the British tennis player who, you know, her comeback from 6-love, 5-love, and 40-30 down, hailed as one of the greatest comebacks in professional tennis. Was at an ITF event. That's also a very interesting podcast to hear from Tara, of her process of coming back from not winning a game and being match point down.
That was amazing. I read about that. Just with her mental state on that, I mean, I know some players can sort of at that point go, all right, I'm so far gone, I'm just going to go for everything and let it all hang out. And sometimes they'll get back to a point where the pressure is back on again and they can falter. How was she able to get through that?
You're never out of it. As long as the game is still on, you're never out of it. Remember this. Remember that for your opponent, the hardest game to win is the last game. You know why? Because their mind is starting to go to, I'm almost there. Not in the process anymore. I hope that she or he gives me this last game. Not in the process anymore. And we're all guilty of that, being players ourselves where, you know, we're 5-2 up and we're just hoping that it's just going to come to us. You know what I mean? I hope she just goes away or he goes away. And they don't. A player that keeps playing hard. You know, even if you're 5-2 down and you're 15-30, you're 15-30.
Yep.
That's a window of opportunity. That other player is going to get nervous. She or him is going to get nervous serving. I promise you, you're 15-30, 1 point away from 2 break points, getting yourself back in there. You're never out of it. Never out of it. I can't tell you, you know, how many players just quit far too early.
Yeah, I agree. I had a stretch in college where I won, I think it was 11 10-point tiebreakers for the match in a row. Wow. It was just quite a bizarre stretch. And what helped me a lot was that every time that there was a pressure point, I reminded myself that there's also pressure on the other guy. And I forced myself to think that even if it was a match point down, I was like, this guy wants to convert this match point so desperately that the pressure's on him. I looked to the other side of the net, I guess, more than my side when the pressure was on. It helped me so much. I think, oh, you're back. So next, we had a question here from Tennis Recon. What are some of the psychological factors you need to be mindful of when dealing with a player coming back from injury?
Psychological. You know, here's the thing. I've seen players that come back from injury actually play better than ever once they've obviously got back to full fitness because there hasn't been expectation in a way. So, you know, sometimes that time away of injury, you know, they're not expecting anything. So they play a little bit more freely or they're working on things and all of a sudden they think, I'm playing unbelievable because they've taken an expectation away from themselves. So, you know, the psychological is you've got to give yourself time to get back into it. You've got to be realistic as well. You know, you've got to look at the bigger picture as you're playing is that you're getting back to match fitness. And we all know that physical fitness that's not playing tennis is not exactly the same. You know, you've got to get match fit. What does match fit means? It means putting the elements together of your physical fitness to your mental fitness together to compete. The great competitors can put them both together. You can be super fit, but mentally weak, and vice versa. You can be mentally strong and physically weak. So, you know, the great players are able to combine both of those together.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I know from the juniors that I coach and a lot of the kids in San Diego where I am, they just got to get out there and also play more practice matches to prepare them to sort of use the skills they work on in practice to get out and work on them so they can have confidence on a match court. I think that's really important.
Yep.
So Moroccan Globetrotter, have you come across a kind of score when you are trailing that triggers you? Have you come across having a kind of score when you're trailing that triggers you? For instance, 2-5, 15-40 down, and you won all the sets when you reached the score. That's a little bit confusing. So I'm guessing that that's like a pressure trigger at a score where you maybe constantly have a problem with.
Yeah. Don't play the score, play the ball.
Yeah, there was a question there earlier, like what advice do you have if you are consistently having trouble converting match points?
Yeah, because you're thinking about it. You know, you're thinking about it. You're not in the process anymore. You're going back to it and saying, okay, here we go again. Or you're attracting the fear towards yourself. You know, it's like being broken at 4-3 and then saying, well, that always happens. I always do that. I always lose my serve at 4-3. And you know what? It will happen. You know, as we say, what you put in your mind is going to come out. It's going to manifest in reality. So it's about staying in the moment. It's about, again, self-talk, saying to yourself, I'm great at pressure. I'm great at these moments. Yeah. I'm great when the heat is on. That's the way you've got to be continually speaking to yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And my next question was like handling losses and how can we sort of better move on from them, learn from them, and not sort of dwell and turn it into this huge negative? Have you got some advice for that?
Yeah, for sure. One of the best ways to do that is to journal and self-reflect. And that can be, I always, working with players, working with athletes, I always say, have a journal. Write down things after a match, regardless if you won or lost. What you did well, what you could have done better, what the opponent did well, so you have a little bit of information on them as well. So, journal stuff down, because it becomes a very small world, especially if you're in a state like Florida or wherever you are. You come up against the same players, more or less, because, you're at the same level, for example. So have information about them, journal stuff down. But the best way for you to improve is to self-reflect. Ask yourself questions. Now, in my book, A Winning Attitude and Mindset, I list the 3 questions I ask myself every evening. I'm not a tennis player, or I play recreationally, but from life perspective, I ask myself, what did I do well today? What could I have done better today? And who did I make better today? And I answer those 3 questions every night. That's how I self-reflect. That's how I work on myself to become a better person, which, as we know, is a ongoing exercise, an ongoing project.
Yes, yeah, always trying to get better, but I guess that's part of the mentality. So I've got a question here from Mikey. Hey, Mikey, what's going on? What would you do with juniors who react negatively, tank in matches when things don't go right? We've discussed mindfulness training via breathing and understanding overall point spread percentages.
Yeah.
So I guess, what other advice do you have for that?
Yeah, let me be 100% honest for you. Those are behaviors that have been allowed. Those have been behaviors that have been allowed from a young age, mostly through the parents, because the parents are the most important people in a kid's life. The coach is there to do a job. The coach is not the parent. So to force a kid not to tank at being a coach, that's a very difficult thing to do, because they'll go back to bad habits. They'll go back to certain beliefs. So here's the thing. If they were allowed to tank and they were allowed to behave when their parents are there, or when their parents were there, then they're going to do it with you as a coach as well. They're just behaviors that have been ingrained.
Yes.
And, obviously we get to the point where, you have standards for yourself. So I spoke about in the 7 keys to being a great coach, you have standards. Chapter 1, and for me, one of those standards were that I wouldn't work with a player who tanks or who gives up. It's just a one very, very simple agreement we have. So for example, the 3 key things were respect, work your hardest, never quit. Respect, you work your hardest, and never quit. Those 3 things.
Yeah, that's 100% right. That has been an allowed thing, and it snowballs over time, and so it's very hard to stop. My next question with motivation: do the best athletes, are they always motivated, or does it ebb and flow? And then a follow-up part to that is, do they look for outside motivating factors, or is it always internal?
Honestly, I can only think of one player who is always 100% engaged. And this is taking nothing away from Serena and Roger and all the players, but, Rafael Nadal, I mean, the guy is just always up for it. We spent some time with him and Carlos in Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the off season when, there's an exhibition there at the Maludava tournament. And I was speaking to Carlos Moya about this, and he just says, Rafael Nadal's approach to every single match, regardless if he's played somebody or not, that he knows, he warms up the same, he does the same research. Rafa will play somebody in the first round of a slam he's maybe doesn't know about or maybe hasn't heard of. He will do his homework. Carlos says, he gets like a little bit like nervous as well. He wants to figure out things about this person. So, here's what he has. He has respect of all, but fear of none. Yeah. If you have that mindset as an athlete of you respect all, but you fear nobody, it's a great outlook to have.
Yeah, definitely. Nadal, so Sean Pook, another question, Nadal's mentality, do you think it's more nature or nurture?
Both.
Yeah.
Nadal's situation is very, very unique because he was brought up with, obviously, Uncle Tony was brought up with a family. So there's a different dynamic there. They weren't paying for a coach, so to say, okay? Because Tony Nadal was a wealthy man. He had his own business, for example. So there's a very unique situation there where, it's a family coaching setup. It's a family business, for example. So it's very different to other people that hire outside coaches and so on and so forth. So basically the deal from a young age working with Tony was those things that I just said there. There will always be respect, there will always be hard work, and there will never be quitting. Those three things.
Yeah.
And that's what's, that's what's been, taking nothing away from Tony Nadal here. He's a great coach, but he's never worked with another player.
That's true, yeah.
What he's done with Ruff has been exceptional. It's been it's an outlier. The situation is an outlier with, being the uncle of a player and so on and so forth. But there's been a lot of other dynamics there that 99% don't have to deal with or don't deal with. I would love to see, and this is not challenging Tony Nadal. He's a great coach. Look what he's done. Yeah. But he's never worked with another player.
Yeah, definitely.
And for me, and so he's never had to adapt to another player.
Yeah.
A great coach is someone that can adapt to the different players that they have. Here's the thing about levels of coaches. A great coach is not about the level they work with. A great coach is about what they can do with that level. So I give you a player I'm just saying a C player.
Yep.
What can you do with them? Can you get them to a B?
Yeah.
That's good coaching. Can you get them to an A? That's great coaching. If I give you an A player, does that make you a great coach?
Not necessarily, no.
No, you might have got lucky, or you're just in the right place at the right time, or good connections. And we all think that these coaches, that are sitting at Grand Slams and they're sitting in the boxes and so on and so forth, these are the best coaches in the world. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, they're good.
Yeah.
Most of them are great coaches, but some of the best coaching I've seen is at grassroots level, or it's at places that you'll never hear of, or people you'll never hear of. Great coaching. I've seen some of the best coaching at schools. They're not even necessarily coaches. They're teachers that are coaching.
Yeah.
Because some of the best coaches come from a teaching background. They understand the psychology of it. They understand the motivation behind it. They understand the patience behind it.
Yes.
So, some of your best coaches are teachers. John Wooden said, coaching is teaching and teaching is coaching.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that you're 100% right. The grassroots level, you can see where kids are coming from a grassroots level. And a lot of those coaches, they go unnamed and they don't get to, get the limelight. But yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. I just want to give a shout out there to Delaney Collins, 34. She was a phenomenal ice hockey player for Canada. I think she competed in numerous world championships and medals as well. So shout out to Delaney. She just became a mom. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited about maybe seeing the kid one day, and who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if they go on to play for Canada like a mom as well. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Delaney, by the way, while she's here, I wrote about Delaney in Champion Minded about, there's certain athletes and players that challenge you as a coach. And I'll never forget, and Delaney will remember this as well. I'll never forget, it was a gym session that we were having. And I was a little bit distracted. And she, they call me Macca. My nickname is Macca. She said to me, Macca, you're distracted. Dial into me. Because I wasn't focused. And it got me a little bit woken up, for example. Because sometimes as coaches, we can drift and we cannot be there 100%. So, that just shows you the professionalism of some athletes as well, and just how focused and tuned in they are, is that they know when you, the coach, are not 100% dialed in as well. So, athletes like Delaney, Kevin Anderson, Svetlana Kuznetsova, these people improved me as a coach massively.
Yes, she said just that I wanted to be better. That's the attitude.
Yeah. And, Delaney's a great example. She's maybe 5'2", and you're playing in a sport like ice hockey.
So it's a tough one.
Her heart was as big as anything. I mean, that's a fighter right there. So
Yeah, that's an amazing. I didn't appreciate ice hockey. Was it ice hockey or field hockey?
Ice hockey,
right? I didn't appreciate that until I went and watched it in person. I could not believe the skill level.
So fast.
Yeah,
it's so fast.
Yes, there's a question here from Level 7 Tennis. Please share some of Kevin Anderson's upbringing and his core characteristics which contribute to his success.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. So Kevin and I were brought up about 5 kilometers, 3 miles apart from each other in Johannesburg. Okay. Very high altitude. We're about 2,000 meters up there, which is, I don't know how many feet that is, 4,500 feet. So high altitude. A lot of red blood cells is there as well, so we oxygenate just like cyclists. Yep. he played cricket, he played some sports up until the age of 12, 13, because in South Africa you have to play multiple sports in school, which is really, really, important. And thank God, I played 7, 8 sports in school.
Yeah.
But Kevin knew he was a good player, or, around about the age of 12, 13. He started to travel, started to work on his game. Obviously, we know that he went to college, and the rest is history there as well. But what I love about Kevin, even these 33 now, he still believes he's developing his game.
Yes.
And talk about mindset. He changed his mindset at 29, which is quite late to be okay, because Kevin was a perfectionist, as in he would let perfection get in the way of him playing. So he would hit, and we can all relate to this. You hit 19, you hit 19 great balls and you miss one, and what are you focused on? You're focused on the one ball. Okay? And that's what would happen to Kevin. He would focus on the one ball instead of the 19 clean shots that he just hit. So it was getting his mind to think about the 19 that he hit well, and the one, obviously not just discarding it, but what could be better there.
Yep.
For example. What else about Kevin? Look, he was already playing Rafa when he was 14. I remember there was like a video of those two, at Le Petit in France, the junior tournament. So he was already a good player at that age. One thing about Kevin, massive respect, I wrote about this in Champion Minded, is that he's one of the least talented guys I've ever worked with. And I say that respectfully because I have so much respect for this guy that he's had to work 10 times harder than the next person. I've worked with Bernie Tomic. I've worked with some Xavier Malise, some incredibly talented guys.
Yep.
But Kevin has to work 10 times harder, taking nothing away from those guys that had to work hard. Okay, everybody has to work hard to get it done. But he had to do something 10 more times than the next guy. Massive respect.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I wanted to move on to, and this is probably something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but fear of failure. And I think it's sort of like it can be a very crippling problem in juniors, especially where they're so focused on the result. Do you have any advice for getting past fear of failure?
Well, fear of failure, you've got to first of all pinpoint where the fear is coming from. What is it? Is it external, internal? Is the fear coming from parents that they maybe don't even realize it, but the pressure to win? So for example, you're getting funded, or you're getting reminded that your coaching is getting paid for and it costs a lot of money, and if you don't win this weekend, you're going to lose your funding, or you don't get this ranking. So is there external pressure being applied? For example, the best thing a coach and a parent can do is take away the pressure. Yep. It's to have the kid focusing on playing, enjoyment. We've got to watch how our reactions are after a loss, for example. I believe the high shouldn't be too high, and I believe the low shouldn't be too low. So if Johnny's winning, everybody's going to McDonald's for a Happy Meal. If Johnny's losing, it's a quiet car ride home. So what does that create? He creates that, well, if I don't win, it's like hell. It's terrible. So there's like these pressures that come. Of course, there's internal pressure, but external pressure is the biggest element of fear of failure. Letting down somebody, your parents, your coach, or whoever it may be. But those are, it's usually external pressure. Yeah,
definitely. And I think if parents are watching this and coaches are watching this, that's something you can really ease on the player and just help them play well. I know I've talked about this in other podcasts, but my goal as a coach, I never ask the score. I always ask, how do they play? If they want to tell me the score, that's fine. But as long as the performance is the goal and not the outcome, that's helped me a lot with my players. So I just thought I'd throw that in there.
To get the mindset right of a young athlete, there has to be alignment of coach and parents with regard to values as well. Are you both rewarding the right things? If the parents are just rewarding on the wins, and you, the coach, are trying to preach about rewarding on behaviors, your work ethic was good, your attitude was good, your effort was good. Okay, you lost today, but you did these things, well done.
Yep.
Or when they're going back home or in the car, they won. They're just focusing on the win, and you beat the number 2 seed, and so on and so forth. Like just complete outcome, result orientated. Even though little Johnny's behaviors were terrible, but he won, so everything's fine. So there's got to be alignment of, and this is the thing that I set in my standards of working with. When you work with a kid, understand, coaches, that you work with parents as well. To get that kid to where you want to be, there has to be an alignment with the parents as well of the behaviors, of rewarding for the right things. You're a coach, you're busy talking about development and rewarding the right things, but the parents, on the other hand, they're just like thinking about the wins and losses. You're a great coach if he wins, you're a terrible coach if he loses. That's basically what it comes down to. So, I stopped working with players. Some of them were great players, nice people, but the parents didn't align with my values. Again, getting back to standards. Now, I get it. We all can't do that. We work for academies where we can't say, I don't want to work with you, I'll work with you. I was lucky that I was working for myself, and that's why I put myself in a position to work for myself, so I could choose who I'd want to work with and who aligns with my standards, which gave me a lot of peace of mind. I had to let go of one or two very good junior players because, I'd hear that the mother is at a tournament arguing with officials or calling the opponent's lines, or the kid is cheating. I don't want to be aligned to that. I don't want to be aligned to that at all. Don't want to be connected to that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm totally agree with you. There's a good question here. So I don't know the tag name, but it says, question: if parents aren't meeting this value match, but your relationship with the kid is amazing, parents don't budge, how do I manage this?
Very tough. And that's exactly the scenario I had. Great question. It was a great kid, really, really good kid, and not his fault. But at the end of the day, you're working with a family there. So you're putting in all this work Monday to Friday, where the kid goes to the tournament with the parents, and the parents don't know how to behave. And the kid gets put under pressure. And the parents are arguing with other parents and so no, my brand, I didn't want to be aligned with that. And that was a choice that I took. So I get it. I miss one or two of those kids they're good kids, but unfortunately, it's in the end, it's not going to work.
Yeah, definitely.
And these are usually parents as well. You'll see with this kid that they coach hop. They go from there to that coach, to that coach, to that coach, because they're the ones that want to, in the end, be the coach and the ones calling the shots at the end of the day.
They want to find a coach that aligns with them, basically.
They want to find a yes coach,
so we talked a little bit about this last time, and you've written about this, and it's team culture. But I had a question before from high school coach. What can you do to align a team with the coach's values? How can you better bring them together as one? Yeah,
obviously, if you're recruiting, I don't know if it's a college or a high school team.
Probably high school. Let's say high school.
Okay, high school. So you can't recruit. So you've got what you've got. It's very, very difficult because you're getting the players. You're not choosing them because it comes down to getting the right people. I don't want to if I'm recruiting or helping college coaches recruit, we're looking at not just skill. We're looking at character. All right. So this player might not be the best player, but they compete.
Yeah.
They will hang in there until the death. Those are players we want, for example. But in high school, or where you're not getting to choose the player or recruit the player, that's a very, very difficult thing to align players with your values. No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen with every player you have that's just going to align with your values. Because again, they're coming from families. They're coming from certain different beliefs, different behaviors to yours, for example. But that's why it gets down to setting your standards. That if you want to be a part of this team, these are the standards, these are the behaviors, this is what's acceptable, this is not acceptable. Okay? Now, once you get established, yeah, I'm back, sorry about that.
You're right.
It's the most important thing for you to do, is to set your standards from the beginning. So people know what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Most coaches get into the issue of not laying standards down early.
Yeah, I agree.
Rules, if you like.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's a question here from Josh, tennis coach. What's a more ideal mental focus for a match? Play to win or play your best? I think we know the answer to that one. Yeah, definitely just judge on effort. Judge on effort, what you're giving for that. You spoke about Ruffer, that sometimes his performance might be 70%, but his effort is still 100%. Yes.
You can still play poorly and win. Definitely. And you can still play very well and lose. But at the end of the day, what did you give for that performance? Judge yourself on performances. So here's something I do. When I work with players, I'll have them grade themselves on on things out of 5. Your body language today, what was that out of 5? Your self-talk today, what was that out of 5? Your energy out there today, what was that out of 5? So, you know, it could be, it's up to the coach and the player to decide what those 4 or 5 things are going to be. And you'll usually see when those scores are high on those, the result is more favorable.
Yeah, that's excellent.
If the scores are low on energy, attitude, body language, self-talk, usually the result, the outcome is usually poor.
That comes back to the journaling you were talking about earlier as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Grade and judge yourself on behaviors. Reward behaviors.
Yes. Yeah, that's really good advice. I know from even like coaching a technical standpoint for me, if a player hits a great shot but has poor technique with it, I don't like to reward it. I like to reward maybe something where I'm working on technique and the technique is good but the result is poor. I'd rather reward that because that's what you're going to be working on in the long term. Mate, we're running out of time. I wanted you to touch on go over your online course that's coming up in a couple of weeks, and where can we find it, and what can we look for in that course?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for mentioning that. So obviously with the lockdown, I've had a lot of. Are we live?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Sorry. Obviously with the lockdown, I've had a lot of time to work on a champion-minded course, online course. And this is over 220 slides with 40 modules. I am on video for 6-7 hours. So if you don't like my voice, I apologize. So I've been very, very busy with this, hoping to get it out within 2 weeks' time. It will be at a very, very reasonable price. It's based off the book Champion Minded. So, you know, we have our sections of development training, training to compete, training to learn. We have all these sections where there'll be 5 modules per section. And each module is around about 7 to 10 minutes of learning with a video. There's some exercises on that to do. So a fantastic course for young students, young athletes. Again, it will be very, very affordable because I'm taking into account the situation right now as well. I know that it will come out at a very low introductory price. However, once things get better, the price will go up because it's a course that's probably worth $300, $400. But it will come in way, way less than that. So super excited about the champion-minded course that's coming out. Yeah,
great. You keep up the good work. By the way, I'm actually going to be talking with David Hall next week on Friday,
awesome.
Which I'm super pumped about, which is a connection that I made through Jason. So I want to say thank you very much for that. But I remember watching David Hall when I was a kid training at Melbourne Park and like looking at this guy like, wow. And I get to talk to him next week. So
yeah, they're phenomenal. I mean, Paralympians and, you know, those guys in the wheelchair tennis and the job that Jason Harnett does. Listen, I've never met a guy with more passion for coaching and for that community than anywhere else, honestly. I mean, I'm sure when you had him on, here, you can just feel it. You can just feel his passion through the phone. So, no, awesome. But thank you so much. Thank you for all you do. You know, a lot of people are speaking about, you know, this stuff you're putting out there. So keep it up, Joel.
Thank you very much, mate. It's great talking to you again.
Thank you.
Speak soon.